This is some dumb, lovesick guy sitting alone at a bar, heartbroken. In front of him is a glass of the same liquid that used to make him feel unstoppable on Friday nights. And now it's the thing helping him drown in his own sadness. That liquid? Alcohol. And if you've never had a sip in your life, NGL, you're missing out on one wild piece of human history. All right, let's get into it. So here's the question literally nobody can answer. Who invented alcohol? Spoiler, it wasn't some guy in a lab coat. It goes back millions of years to monkeys getting buzzed off rotten fruit in the wild. But humans? We didn't start making it on purpose until about 9,000 years ago in China. All you actually need to make alcohol is two things: sugar and a tiny fungus called yeast. Mix them, wait a few days, and boom, you've got booze. No lab, no fancy equipment, nothing. Just time and a little bit of rot. Way before humans even existed, scientists believe animals were already getting drunk in the wild. Like, literally. Here's how. Fruit falls off trees, sits in the sun for a few days, and naturally ferments into this weak, boozy version of itself. And animals, they'd eat it, and basically get tipsy off rotten fruit. Picture a monkey just vibing, slightly wasted, in the middle of a forest. Wild, right? Honestly, I once saw a clip online of a bunch of animals wasted off some fruit, and they looked so funny and stumbling around, falling over each other. NGL, they looked exactly like my boys at my bachelor party. Same energy, no joke. But here's where it gets even crazier. There's an actual scientific theory called the drunken monkey hypothesis, and it suggests that our ancestors evolved to actually crave the smell of alcohol. Why? Because that smell meant ripe fruit, which meant more energy, more food. So yeah, it turns out you might be wired to love a drink because your great-great-great-great-grandparent was basically a tipsy monkey. Kind of puts a new spin on, it's in my genes, huh? Okay, but that's just animals stumbling around in the wild. The real chaos starts when humans decided to get involved on purpose. So the oldest proof we have of humans making alcohol on purpose? China, about 9,000 years ago. Archaeologists found ancient pottery with chemical traces of a fermented drink made from rice, honey, and fruit. Basically, ancient Chinese people were out here making cocktails before cocktails were even a thing. Like, China casually invented fermented cocktails 9,000 years ago, and paper, and gunpowder, and the compass. At this point, I'm convinced if you wait long enough, they'll claim they invented Fridays too. Now, if we're talking specifically about wine, like actual grape wine, the oldest evidence comes from a place you probably wouldn't guess: Georgia. Not the US state, the actual country, over by the Caucasus Mountains. We're talking about 8,000 years ago, where people used these massive clay jars called couveuvre to ferment grapes. And get this, some wineries in Georgia still use that exact same method today. Like, the recipe is basically unchanged for 8,000 years. That's wild. So next time someone tells you wine started in France or Italy, you can hit them with the plot twist. Nah, it's Georgia, baby. Okay, so we know where it started and roughly when. But here's the question that's been bugging me this whole video. Do we actually know who? Like, an actual name? And here's the answer that's going to mess with you a little. Nobody knows. Like, literally no name, no face, nothing. Because this happened way before humans even invented writing. But here's the real twist. Alcohol probably wasn't invented by one genius. It was probably a total accident that happened over and over again in different places by completely different people who had no idea what the others were doing. Basically, someone left fruit or grain sitting around for too long, got curious, took a sip, got a little buzzed, and thought, okay, we're doing this again. That's it. That's the whole origin story. So real talk. If you and I were alive 9,000 years ago, there's a solid chance one of us would have accidentally invented alcohol too, just by being lazy and forgetting to throw out some old fruit. So next time you're being lazy, just know you might be onto something historic. Here's a wild one. Oak barrels. You know how a lot of whiskey and wine taste all rich and smoky? That wasn't even on purpose at first. Ancient people just used wooden barrels because, well, that's what they had to store and transport liquid in. Turns out the wood was secretly aging the alcohol and adding all that flavor the entire time. Basically, one of the most iconic tastes in alcohol today exists because of a packaging mistake nobody planned. And here's another one. Sailors. Back in the day, ships couldn't carry fresh water for long voyages because water stored in wooden casks would turn nasty, full of algae and bacteria, way faster than beer or rum would spoil. So sailors carried alcohol instead, like beer, rum, or grog, because it actually held up better than the water did. Imagine being a sailor and your daily survival drink is also just a buzz. Different times, man. Okay, one more story because this one's actually unreal. Champagne. You know the bubbly stuff everyone pops at New Year's? The guy famous for it, Dom Perignon, an actual monk, was not trying to make it. He was trying to stop it. Back in the day, bottles of wine kept randomly exploding in the cellars. Like full-on exploding, shooting corks like bullets, glass everywhere. Turns out the yeast would go dormant in winter, then wake back up in spring and start fermenting again, building up pressure until, boom! Bottles were popping off like dominoes, one explosion setting off the next. It got so bad, cellar workers literally had to wear iron masks just to go to work, like that was the OSHA safety gear of the 1600s. People at the time were so freaked out, they called it the devil's wine. And the monks had a saying that you had to drink it before Easter, before it got possessed. So Dom Perignon spent his whole life trying to get rid of the bubbles. The guy whose name is on the most famous champagne bottle on Earth was anti-bubbles. And that whole iconic quote, "I am tasting the stars," never said it. Some advertiser made that up 100 years after he died. So next time you pop a bottle of champagne, just know the dude on the label would honestly be horrified.